You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
Touchdown! A.J. Brown! That's beautiful. And intercepted by the Eagles. He is hit. They've got him again! They've got him back at the 26. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles!
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Nido, David Neese, and it is a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday evening, depending where you are. It could be cold, it could be snowy, it could be nice and warm. It depends what you ask on this podcast. But nonetheless, how are you gentlemen feeling today?
All right. Definitely not nice here in the Philly burbs. It was 10 degrees this morning when I let the dogs out and came home and it was probably 16. So I would definitely say it's not nice here.
What about you, David?
Yeah, I've just left cold and entered more cold. Yeah, I went from Minnesota to here, and yeah, it's cold in both places. Not fun. I hate it.
Unfortunately for you guys, but fortunately for me, I can't relate.
Wasn't a balmy 72 down there.
Hey man, I love it. It feels good. I don't gotta buckle down or anything of that sort. But I would think it's a little warmer out there, and with all the heat coming from the Nova Care complex, all the heat coming from Citizens Bank Park since they re-signed Kyle Schwarber. But before we dig into any Eagles breakdown, a little bit of a housekeeping stuff you got for us today, Corey.
Yeah, nothing crazy, but the Eagles did cut long snapper Cal Adamitis. So a roster move there. Obviously, we saw Marcus Epps elevated and made some plays last night in the loss, but just a long snapper released here by the Eagles. We'll see if they make any other moves, make sure everybody's healthy. It's a short week, but that's really it. Kind of want to really spend time and diving into this game that we saw last night, which was really tough to watch. And they said, well, you didn't have enough. Here's overtime.
Yeah, they wanted to drag us as deeply through the mud as they possibly can. I mean, if I tell you that Saquon Barkley had 20 attempts for 122 rushing yards and a touchdown, and A.J. Brown had 6 receptions for 100 receiving yards, would you have think the Eagles actually lost a game? Or would you even think that Jalen Hurts threw 4 interceptions and had 1 fumble after throwing an interception? It was one of those weird Twilight Zone kind of games. What's your main takeaway from last night's debacle?
I think it was just a debacle. That's what you called it. I mean, Jalen Hurts was horrendous. There's no way to sugarcoat it. 5 turnovers, played his worst game of his career for the entire country to see. The Eagles still can't get out of their way. It's, they take, instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it seems like it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back. They had a touchdown taken off the board from A.J. Brown on a holding call. They had a missed field goal. They had a penalty that negated an interception from Cooper DeJean on the Chargers' first drive that really could have helped give them more momentum and way better field position at midfield. It was tough to watch for the most part. Now, I thought the running game looked pretty good. I know David will probably dive into that a little bit, but it seemed like they did introduce some new concepts. Saquon Barkley did hint that he was excited about the game plan, so I think that could be something to build off of. He was averaging nearly 5.5 yards per carry, so I think that is a positive overall. A.J. Brown, as you mentioned, 100 yards on 6 catches, could have had 2 touchdowns if he caught that beautiful pass from Jalen Hurts on that final possession. But, yeah, I mean, this is a game that stung. You can see the body language and the facial expressions off the field. Jordan Mailata was shaking his head. Nick Sirianni said post-game that this one it stings because they felt that they had a really good week of practice and preparation, and it still didn't prove to be enough. They only scored 19 points And in the first half, they only scored 6. The missed field goal by Elliott makes it now 10 halves this season in 13 games where they have scored 7 points or less, which is just unacceptable with this offense.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff. Like you mentioned, they did integrate a lot of new things into the offense. They used duo out of like the pony personnel. They had crossers, they had flood stretch, they had rollouts, they had the really beautiful quasi tush push fake, which is what Saquon ran the 52-yarder on. So there were some positives to take away. They did add some things in, but when you turn the ball over 5 times, I mean, it's a near impossibility that you're going to pull that game out. It was amazing that they only scored like 9 points off turnovers, quite frankly. I mean, when you have 5 turnovers like that, it also looked to me as if whether it was Jalen Hurts himself or whether he spent the week training to do it, but they took the training wheels off. This was not the conservative approach. This was not the risk-averse version of Jalen Hurts. That thing was slinging in harm's way all night long, and you see the result. A lot of people complained they didn't like the other version. Well, this version turned out to not be too much better.
You actually warned everybody about this version that was coming.
Yeah, and that's, and it's kind of sad, but they did have some, nobody wants to hear it because after an embarrassing loss on national TV, like Corey said, the whole world's watching you go down like this. But they also had a lot of, obstacles in this game. Without Lane Johnson, I don't know what their winning percentage is, but it's low. It's like 33%. Dickerson missed 12 to 15 snaps. You had Brett Toth coming back in. Cam Jurgens is playing hurt. Mailata, for whatever reason, we probably won't know until the season ends, but he has struggled the entire year. A lot of it has to do with Dickerson not being as effective beside him. I think he's trying to compensate because he knows he kind of got a weak link there. And back to Hurts, in addition to, just slinging the ball around, you're also having to play within the construct of this routes scheme and everything that Nick Sirianni has developed. And it's not that, it's not that great. And it is having people open. Like if you go back and watch the All 22, which I'm sure all the film guys will be pointing out this week, there were people open. Troy Aikman pointed it out all night long, but they're like the 3rd, 4th read guys on this progression. And that's really hard to get to, especially when you don't trust your offensive line.
With that said, before we get going, I sat back and just realized after that game last night that despite the 5 turnovers from Jalen Hurts, despite the 3 critical drops by A.J. Brown, despite the penalties, they still had a shot to win the game.
Yeah.
But they were facing a quarterback that had a broken left hand that was doing the weirdest things that nobody should be doing last night.
They were. I mean, they had a run. The offensive line for the Chargers absolutely atrocious. I agree. They don't win. They definitely don't have a snowball's chance in hell to win a game like that against the Rams, Seahawks, the Packers. I get that. But still, with the context of who they're playing, and how bad they played last night, they still had the ball and on the 17-yard line of the Chargers with plenty of time left to find the end zone to basically grab a win from the grips of the Chargers and go back home and just wipe the sweat off their forehead and said, wow, like we got away with one.
They almost did. I mean, they definitely did. And before we get to that last play, right? I want to ask you guys a question because I've been trying my best to be, to not be an asshole towards Nick Sirianni, which I think I've done pretty well this season. And I've said that multiple times. But do you think last night's and I call it a very off night because we never seen Jalen turn the ball over like that in quite a long time. But do you think this newly implanted version of Nick Sirianni's offense threw him for a loop as to like he was just out of his realm and how to make things happen on this offense? Because he was all over the place, I feel like, and he was very panicky, which again comes with this new version of the offensive line that nobody's used to. But do you think the implementation of these new plays and the new way of doing things kind of just threw Jalen Hurts for a loop outside of what they practice?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't see anything that was super out of the ordinary. I think they did have some better route concepts at times if you look at the film, although they open up the game with 4 wide receivers or 3 wide outs and a tight end running all hitch routes to open up the game, so it's like, oh, well, here we go again. What did they really change? I just think that Jalen Hurts is second guessing himself. I think he's second guessing what he's seeing on the field. I think he's a little worried that he's not feeding A.J. Brown enough, and then that plays into effect of, oh, is he seeing the right reads? The offensive line, again, it's been a revolving door with injured players. No Lane Johnson. Dickerson missed basically a whole quarter in the third with that calf injury before coming back in. I don't know if I don't know how much Nick Sirianni changed or implemented, but I did think that there were some sparks more so in the running game, which could potentially help open up the passing game like we saw last year, where it could be a positive sign moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think he's overwhelmed either. I mean, he's a coach's son. He knows all these concepts, all the play designs. I do think that he's probably being asked to play outside his comfort zone in the fact that they asked him to not be so risk averse. I think that's probably the biggest issue, is that he was, even the play that was intercepted to end the game is something he's done over and over and over. I mean, he alluded to it himself. It's not that hard of a play to complete, and a lot of the concepts that they're running just do not leave very many options. And when option 1, option 2 are gone, by option 3, you're on the ground or having to run. And for whatever reason, I do think it's noticeable to anytime you watch the game, and it's fair to point out, he does not want to run as much. Whether the reason is because he's hurt or because he just doesn't want to get hurt or whatever it is, it has hindered the offense. I mean, even in the one play last night where you saw Khalil Mack not fall for the fake to shoot to Saquon there on the side, he just stayed there on the edge. He did not move a bit. Normally, that's where he tucks it back in and runs up the gut himself. And that wasn't something he did. And losing that element is killing him. I mean, it is very hard to overcome, because all of the plays that they like doing down the field are predicated on that half-second hesitation from play action or from the RPO pulling the ball back in. And without the threat of any of that, 2/3 of the playbook is just worthless.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I think we spoke about this a lot in the chat last night, like he's holding on to the ball way too long. And one thing that's haunted him throughout his career that he's gotten away with is he doesn't throw with anticipation. And if you look at all the big catches from Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, like Smitty, majority of the time has to come back for the ball, throw himself wildly in the air and above anybody else in gravity, and make these crazy catches. It's never really in stride, except for possibly the dagger. That was actually the perfect pass at the perfect time. But he did make a perfect pass to A.J. Brown in stride last night that A.J. Brown dropped, or the defender hit out, however you want to look at it. We've been down this road before, right? We've been down, Carson Wentz. The guy had a spectacular year, then the year after, and the year after that continued to just regress. Jalen hasn't really regressed in years past leading up to this, right? He's gotten better. But is this year an anomaly because he has a rookie coordinator, or are we seeing something that Eagles fans should be concerned with moving forward?
I don't think it's a regression. I think quarterbacks are allowed to have a bad year. Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City right now has his worst touchdown to interception ratio. I believe his lowest completion percentage. It happens. Now, am I saying that Jalen Hurts is as good as Patrick Mahomes one-on-one? No, but Jalen Hurts also balled out and probably played better than Mahomes in both Super Bowls and won one and lost one, obviously. And you can make an argument that they probably should have won that first meeting against the two teams.
That bullshit call.
Yeah. So to me, like we see like Ron K saying like it's McKee time. You bench Jalen Hurts, that's it. Like it's over. It's Carson Wentz 2.0 You are saying you do not trust Jalen Hurts anymore to get them out of this rut. You can't trade him because A, he has a no trade clause, so he has to agree to it. And B, the cap hit that you're going to take is pretty large. And C, you have to find a team that's willing to take on that kind of money. And D, who's the quarterback that's coming in to replace Jalen Hurts? There's a reason why Tanner McKee
overvaluing Tanner McKee heavily.
There's a reason why Tanner McKee was a 6th-round pick. I mean, he has limitations too. He's a pocket passer. Like, everybody's like, oh, hey, we need this or we need that from Jalen. But Tanner McKee, yeah, he's looked good in certain games. Has he played a legitimate defense in his NFL pro career? I can't remember. He played against the Giants.
Dallas last year. But,
yeah. Like if Tanner McKee was playing some of the top defensive units when he filled in and he looked good, all right, I'll give you more time to make an argument. But to me, this sitting of Jalen Hurts to see what he's missing on the sideline. I mean, do we not think that he's not analyzing the film during the week? I mean, again, it kind of goes back to what David has been hammering all season. The offensive line has struggled all season long. Look what the Chargers offensive line allowed happen to Justin Herbert. The Eagles pressured him on almost 70% dropbacks and sacked him a career high 7 times. It doesn't matter if you have 3 Hall of Famers combined into 1 quarterback. If you do not have 5 guys that can hold your blocks, it's pointless. So for me, yes, is Jalen Hurts playing poorly over the last 4 or 5 weeks? Absolutely 100%. Was he atrocious last night? Absolutely. But this is a 5-week stretch. And now the other argument I've been hearing is, oh, well, he didn't really lead them to the Super Bowl. It was Saquon Barkley. Okay. Who won them the game off? Who led the offense in that Super Bowl when Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs defense bottled up Saquon Barkley?
Saquon Barkley just switched his jersey to number 1 and he started throwing the ball everywhere. Right. You see that happen?
It's just, to me, I get the frustration. I get that this fan base tasted a Super Bowl and now they want to repeat. There's a reason why it's really hard to repeat and not many teams have done it in the past. It's just not an easy task. So I don't think they should bench Jalen Hurts. I just think that it would signal that it's the end with Hurts as the quarterback. I just don't see how you come back and say, okay, well, here you go, Jalen. Here's 1 game for you to sit and think about what you've done, see what you're missing. I don't know how he doesn't see that watching film in the practice facilities.
Yeah, I don't think he's regressed, nor do I think he should be benched. I don't think he has the personality or the psyche to take something like that. I don't think that's the way you get him to respond. They did that with Donovan McNabb all the way back in 2008, and they brought in Kevin Kolb against the Ravens. And then they, benched him for a week. And, they did go on a run after that. But I don't know how much of it was due to that because McNabb didn't have the personality for it either. And 1 year, calendar year later, he was off to the Commanders or then Redskins, whatever. But no, I don't think he's regressed. What I do think has happened is he's not utilizing the run game as much, which is hurting his game. And also, I do think it's an extremely elementary offense. A lot of people are killing Patullo for it, and his sequencing and play calling, it hasn't been great. But he's also, stuck within the construct of this offense as well. And anybody who does this at a high level, lots of people online like Honest NFL. I don't know if you know who he really is in the real world, but he is he's a highly respected person in the NFL who just doesn't want his name out there. And he basically says this scheme is complete dog crap. I mean, and anybody who's watched it would say the same thing.
Can you say that one more time? Just rewind it 2 seconds.
The scheme is dog crap. And it has been. But they've been able to overcome it through talent, through having a really good offensive line and executing what they're good at very well over and over and over. And it worked when they were able to do that. But as soon as there was a drop off in the offensive line, as soon as the run game's not quite as good, if you have an off game, well, the athletes aren't left there to basically mask the scheme. And I think that Sirianni was very close to being fired at the end of 23. And I believe he would not be the head coach right now if Howie Roseman didn't go out and get Saquon Barkley in 2024. I do think it changed everything. And it masked the scheme because everybody now wants to say, oh, well, they were able to do this. They were able to do that in 2024. But I think Jalen Hurts averaged like 188 yards a game in passing in 2024. It's very close to that. And it's not much different this year. They weren't winning like that. And most of his pass plays that were successful was because it was played off of the run. It was because the run game was so successful, they had to respect it. They had to bring two guys in the box. And then, yeah, it left a lot of meat on the bone in the passing game, which is just no longer there.
I just think that Jalen Hurts has built himself a resume where he deserves a longer leash than what people are giving him right now.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. But there's somebody in that NovaCare complex that does not deserve a longer leash. That it feels like if he's the son, everybody's just rotating around him, and everybody just wants to avoid saying his name for some reason, like it's the boogeyman. But David hit the nail on the head. Like it's this scheme. Like it is elementary. It is basic as hell in 2025. Like you have guys like Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. What's the guy from Seattle? The coach.
Oh, Ben Johnson, Andy Reid. I mean,
Even Andy Reid. These guys scheme their playmakers to be open, and that's not Nick Sirianni. And what drives me nuts is that I know Jeffrey Lurie, and all due respect, because I love you, Jeff. You sat at the table, and I want to know what his pitch was to you, because his offense, and he said in his press conference that his offense is predicated on the guys beating their men, like offensive line beating their guys, wide receivers beating their guys, running back beating their guys, quarterback beating the defense. It's predicated on that. But it's gotten to a point where it's so basic that you can't win on talent alone anymore. Like last year was because of Saquon. I know Jalen beat the brakes off the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and the Commanders, which was a beautiful sight. But Saquon led them to where Jalen was good enough to take them over the top. And had Jalen could have had a great year last year for all we care. Yeah, that's great. But it was that secret ingredient that they needed. They didn't have in DeAndre Swift. They didn't have in Miles Sanders. They definitely didn't have in Kenny Gainwell. And Saquon led them to the promised land. But we got to stop avoiding the fact and stop dancing around the fact that Nick Sirianni, yes, he has a good record. Yes, he has all these great accolades. But he has the accolades because he has a very, very talented roster, probably one of the best in the NFL. That these guys like a Mike McDaniel doesn't have. LaFleur doesn't really have. Like these guys, if they had this roster, we wouldn't be having this kind of conversation because they schemed their guys to be open. And Sirianni is I feel like, and I said this years ago, he's truly just riding, like he's just here just for fun. He's here so he doesn't get fired. Like it's the weirdest thing in the world. Like you have to question, like, what does he really do? People say culture. It's been a shit show of a season and behind the scenes. Even last year was a shit show of a season behind the scenes. He doesn't call plays. When he did, the team was 2-5. When he stripped Brian Johnson, that was a shit show of a season. So, like, what do you really like? What do you bring to the table? Sorry,
no, I agree there. I think there's. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, who's to blame? Who's to blame?" And Jalen Hurts gets a lot of the blame last night, obviously, for that loss. The scheme isn't great. I mean, we've been saying it. Fans are realizing it. When defensive backs are running the routes for the wide receivers, that's a problem. And that's what happened on that interception when Jalen Hurts tried to hit Devontae Smith on that hitch route. The cornerback read it. Now, if you look at it, Devontae didn't really sell that he was going vertical, and the cornerback jumped the route, ran through Devontae. Devontae hit the floor. Who knows if Devontae could have at least picked it up. But on the surface, it looks like it's a terrible decision by Jalen Hurts. But it's a really good play by the cornerback. A.J. Brown went up, had that ball hit him in his hands. Should have been caught. So that's two interceptions that shouldn't have happened. Now, I get it. You can't play the woulda, shoulda, coulda game or the what ifs. But the game could have looked a lot differently if others around Jalen Hurts and this offensive play calling was better, was improved. They paid attention to the little details, which is what Nick Sirianni always harps about. Is, we want to be the best at winning at battles that don't require skill. It's just effort. Well, that isn't happening consistently. The Jordan Mailata holding, a little ticky-tacky, perhaps, but he got enough of a jersey to warrant a flag. Can't happen. You can't have that happen. The interception for Cooper DeJean, he gets it.
That's another thing. These flags.
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, I'm just piggybacking off you. Like, these penalties are just, it's just been a shit show.
Yeah, just think about that. So, yeah, they got the penalty on the interception. No, it didn't result in points. The Chargers went 3 and out, but instead of starting your second drive at midfield, you got pinned back at your own 10 and then went 3 and out. So, I mean, these different penalties, large, small, and different, they have really compounded and just continue to snowball. And then when you have Jalen Hurts that struggles for the last month plus, when you've got A.J. Brown dropping balls, who, by the way, took full accountability on all 3 of them post-game, and you got other things going on, it's just one big mess. And to go back to your point about Nick Sirianni and what is he doing or what does he do, this is what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to fix this culture. He's supposed to fix the vibes, but it's seemingly clear that he and Kevin Patullo just don't have an answer to write this offense the way it needs to be. Now, again, is Jalen Hurts limited in what he does? Absolutely. All quarterbacks have limitations. But as David has mentioned in his writing on the podcast here, fans, maybe even some people in the front office, they want to see an offense that is not predicated to the strengths of your quarterback. That is a tough formula to win. You have to play to the strengths of your team. And sometimes it's going to look ugly, but nobody was complaining when they were running their way to the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts had 188 yards per game through the air. Nobody's complaining that for all of his starts, including the playoffs, he's winning at almost a 70% clip. Nobody, but because he's having bad games, because the offense is looking terrible, it's all just under a huge magnifying glass right now. So I just don't know what's going to happen. I was talking to some friends today. I actually think, obviously, if they completely collapse, I don't think Nick is here. Mm-hmm. But I do think that if they wave the white flag and they don't go at least 2-2 over these final 4 games of the regular season, I also can see them moving in a different direction. Even if they make the playoffs, they have a home game. Give
me Joe Brady as a head coach.
I just don't know how long Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman will hold on to Nick Sirianni, where you're looking at 2 potential disastrous collapses in 3 seasons with the Super Bowl sandwiched in.
Yeah, I think the proof is in just watching. You heard Saquon this week say the vibes on the sideline is not good. Well, that's an indictment on your CEO, rah-rah head coach. I mean, that's a direct indictment. And secondly, you've seen when Nick called plays, you mentioned he was 2-5. It wasn't good. You had to bring in someone like Shane Steichen. And when he went to Indianapolis, you saw the offense he took with them. They had motion. They had all sorts of innovative things. Then it went back to his pick, Brian Johnson, went back to Nick's offense, looked like crap. Then you bring in someone experienced, and a lot of people say that he did that hire. That hire came from the top. He okayed it because, of course, he did, because what the hell else was he going to do? Yeah, he said, yeah, I welcomed Kellen Moore in. Of course you did, because Nick and I, we already had made the decision that he was one of the top candidates. And then you saw Kellen brings some elements to the offense because he had a more mature voice in the room. He was able to bring a little bit of his style to it, and it worked. And then he left, and you got Kevin Patullo, who's worked with Nick for years. Patullo actually probably has a longer resume than Nick. I think he's been in the NFL for a longer time, but he clearly sees and does this the same way Nick does. So every time it's completely Nick, it hasn't been that great. It's always taken an extra voice or supernatural things going on, like Jalen Hurts having an MVP type season in 2022, Saquon Barkley having an MVP season in 2024. And when you don't have that exceptionalism, It's just a mediocre offense. I mean, their offensive numbers are around the same as what the New York Jets are. That's how bad their offense is. Their EPA and everything else, it's almost the same as the New York Jets.
And wasn't Patullo actually a coordinator for the Jets at one point? So he brought
I
brought
don't know
that
if
there
he
with
ever
him.
called plays before.
He was like a passing game coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he may have been
Um,
that. Yeah, I don't think he's ever called plays like in college, high school, pee wee, nowhere. I don't think he's ever called plays prior to getting this gig.
But you know who has called plays? Your guy. And I don't want to butcher the last name, but so correct me if I'm wrong. Scott Loeffler?
Loeffler, I don't know.
Loeffler?
Your guess is as good as mine.
That works with me.
He's got like 13 years of experience of it.
Which blows my mind because when you're hiring somebody for a job, there's requirements, right? And as an OC, as a DC, the requirement is you got to call the plays because the head coach is not doing nothing. The world knows Nick cannot call plays. When the whole thing came out that Nick was more involved, I felt like it was a bunch of hoopla, and it felt like more like maybe Patullo's getting a little bit more involved now and actually have a wrinkle in the offense, which we saw new wrinkles that we didn't see before. If Patullo has been terrible calling plays or had never called plays, why is he in the position that he's in? If Nick Sirianni was not the greatest at calling plays and was more so Frank Wright, why is he in the position that he's in? Like, it feels like the Eagles want so much of a guy that would be a bit of a pushover so they could have say in the personnel that you're willing to sacrifice having a guy like a Andy Reid, a Matt LaFleur, a Sean McVay, just for the greater good of having a quote unquote yes man.
I think you're somewhat right because of what happened after Chip Kelly. They're never going to do that ever again.
Mm-hmm.
At least not in the Lurie, Howie Roseman era. That's never happening again. They're not going to have a Bill Parcells, a Bill Belichick, Chip Kelly type of guy who controls everything. And quite frankly, their way works. That's why I don't think Nick will be safe. Like Corey said, if they go 2-2 the rest of the way, he's likely fired.
Mm-hmm.
Because frankly, I think they've shown that they can. I mean, I don't think it's that far-fetched. And I also don't think, not a year down the road, but if this doesn't turn around, they're not afraid to move on from a quarterback if they're eating a lot of dead money either. They just don't care. They've done it, twice before. I don't think that they have a problem doing it again. They want to win, and they think that their mindset is the reason behind this of why it works. They don't believe it's everything else. They believe it's their culture that they've set the standard for. And in a lot of ways, I think they're right, because without Howie controlling everything and Jeff pretty much escrowing unlimited cash for him to be in a position to do all of these signings and crazy contracts, they wouldn't be in this position. Because you hit the nail on the head earlier, Brian. If Sean McVay or one of these other, Kyle Shanahan, had these rosters, you would see what this team could be capable of with competent coaching.
I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I was just listening and looking up some stuff. Everybody's like,
I saw your eyes moving a mile a minute, so I need to know what you're gathering over there.
And Scott's last name is Loeffler.
Loeffler, okay, there it is.
Yeah, Loeffler. So I was trying to find that, and I was looking up some stuff and scanning Twitter. Jeff McClain tweeted out last night, but the numbers for Hurts. I mean, this guy had 15 touchdowns to 1 interception, over 1,600 yards passing. I mean, he can be successful. So, the scheme, the players, it's just not mixing well this year. And sometimes you just have those types of seasons. It's unfortunate. It's coming on the heels of a dominant, you can almost argue once in a lifetime team that we saw last year in the 2024 Eagles. But right now, that's kind of the reality of it. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They're on the verge of possibly not making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. And for me, I just think that Jalen Hurts is who he is. I know everybody loves to compare him and make, is he top 10, whatever he is. He wins more times than not at this level. And to me, that's what I want from a quarterback. Again, he had an absolute clunker last night. Not absolving him from that. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any blame. But he had this team at 7-2 at one point, again, with no running game. And yeah, the defense certainly helped out. They held their own again last night. sometimes you need more things around a quarterback to make the team work. And maybe that's frustrating to some. And maybe they're saying, well, why can't we have the next Josh Allen or the next Patrick Mahomes? Those guys don't come around that often. I mean, who thought that both of those guys would be what they are today? I don't
Remember,
think
Josh Allen was an interception machine in his first early in his career.
Yeah, coming out of Wyoming, big arm. I mean, and he's doing everything by himself with a really poor supporting cast. So if this offense could just increase their productivity, stop getting out of their own way, just a sliver, this team can get back on track. This team can take down anybody in the NFC. It's the problem being they just can't do it, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that either. And Jalen Hurts is not the problem. I mean, I think we've illustrated that almost all three of us believe it is inept coaching that has put them in this position at all levels: discipline, scheme, morale. I mean, the infighting that's taken place. It's been just one thing after another this year, which is just not how you'd want to see this type of season end up. But I mean, like you pointed on, all these other teams are having issues as well, and that their records aren't as good, and the Ravens don't look as good. You mentioned the Chiefs.
They look terrible.
The Chiefs, but I'd say one of the differences is they don't have the talent this team does, which is just what I keep going back to, is a competent coaching staff would have this team. They'd have already figured it out. It wouldn't be week 14 and they don't know what to do. They don't have any answers. I mean, everybody wants to say Nick Sirianni can't call plays. Man, he's been a head coach for 5 years. I mean, you have to know something. You don't have Shane's playbook anymore. You don't have Kellen's playbook. Just pick the damn thing up and call it in the same sequential order. I mean, the information's there. The talent is there. It's inexcusable that they're not being utilized properly.
I think the coaching is good, and Ron K here says coaching didn't cause A.J. Brown to drop several balls.
No.
I think we all agree with that, but we also have said it's a collective group of where this blame is. Jalen Hurts deserves blame, the players, the coaches, the offensive line.
But it seems like it's heavily on the coaches because there's just a lack of discipline. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I say this to Corey all the time in the chat. It still blows my mind that Jalen can't throw with anticipation in year 6 or 7 in the NFL.
That's even
we see AJ break a lot. He'll break open, and for a split second, if the ball hits him, he's gone. But Jalen waits until he's actually just settled, as opposed to just throwing him open.
It's risk aversion. It goes back to the same thing. It's risk aversion. He doesn't want to anticipate because anticipate could put the ball in harm's way. But yeah, AJ Brown could have caught the 3 balls. Had there not been a Mailata penalty, one of his catches that he did bring in was a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Had he caught one of the other ones, it was a touchdown. And they win the game. And how much better do you feel about them?
And they had that one touchdown that was called back that he threw to AJ Brown when he scrambled.
Right. And even if they won last night, were you happy with the offensive performance? If they got the W, it's no different than it was at the beginning of the year when they beat the Rams. Yeah, but it took 2 blocked field goals. They beat Dallas, and it took a freaking lightning storm or something to just kill the offenses so nobody else could move the ball the rest of the night. I mean, the signs were there early in the year too. They just were pulling them out. And the defense is tired now. It can't keep saving them. If the offense scored 24 points a game, they'd win 90% of these games. But they can't get past 16 points. I mean, I'm shocked. I know we're about to go next week. Philly's 11.5-point favorites. Are they even going to score 12 freaking points? This is a team that hasn't scored shit all year. I don't really understand it.
They've scored over 20 points in only one of the last 4 games, I think it is. Where do we stand right now, Corey? Give us some positivity. Where do the Eagles stand right now, and how confident are you in them to finish the season on the right foot?
I like the defense. I thought they had a nice bounce back after giving up almost 450 yards of offense in each of the last 2 games. I think Vic Fangio had a great game plan. They took advantage of a bad offensive line against the Chargers. They were swarming. They forced some turnovers. They had a couple of forced fumbles that they couldn't fall on. Obviously, the Cooper DeJean interception was called back. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is – it's hard. I don't want to say this is 2023, but it seems like time is a flat circle because if I recall, when the Eagles played the Cardinals in 23, they were like an 11-point favorite at home. And I remember being at Xfinity Live watching that game, and you could just feel the energy get absolutely sucked out on New Year's Eve day at Xfinity Live when they lost to the Cardinals. So I know the offense doesn't give anybody a whole lot of promise or positivity. I do think this is a championship caliber defense. I know we spent the bulk of the episode talking on the offense because obviously that's the most pressing and most confusing. But, I mean, they've got some ballers on that defense. I thought Jalen Hunt was phenomenal. He had 2.5 sacks. Nakobe Dean is a heat-seeking missile. You just got to wrap up his tackles a little bit. I feel like he's getting there, but sometimes he over pursues at times. But I love his physicality. I love what he brings to this team. But yeah, this defense, I think, although tired, they are going to continuously ball out and do what they need to do. And I think that's very evident when Moro Ojomo got called for that leverage penalty on the field goal. And all of a sudden the defense had to quickly sprint back on the field and they didn't allow a touchdown. To me, that shows that this defense hasn't basically thrown the middle finger to the offense and say, you know what, we're done. Like we're tired of bailing you guys out. We're tired of bailing out penalties. And I think that this offense just if they could play a fraction as good as the defense has been playing for the most part of the season. I know they had a tough 2-game stretch. I think that they can make some noise. I don't think they should be viewed as a Super Bowl favorite by anybody. I don't think they are going to make the Super Bowl. I do think they are going to go 3-1 in this stretch. I do. I think they lose at Buffalo. I think Josh Allen, the Bills, they're starting to cook a little bit. If you can't beat the Washington Commanders twice with no Jaden Daniels, at least for probably the first game, maybe the rest of the season. I mean, if they put Jaden Daniels out when they're already eliminated, then Dan Quinn and that whole front office should be fired on the spot because that's absolutely malpractice.
They're worse than Sirianni then.
But no Jaden Daniels, no Zach Ertz, no defense other than Terry McLaurin. I don't know how the Commanders are moving the ball. God, if they lose to the Las Vegas Raiders this Sunday, I mean, there might be pitchforks and torches outside the link. So I say they do go 3-1. I think that they get some momentum. They're able to hold on to the NFC East. They get a home playoff game and then see what happens. Maybe they somehow, some way catch lightning in a bottle, and you just got to go on a little mini run here to win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going 3-1 as well. I think they have tons of problems. I think that when they get some of these guys back, specifically Lane Johnson, if he's finally healthy, I mean, he was banged up for a good part of the year in addition to this plantar fasciitis.
Eagles are 15-27 without him, by the way, because you brought that up earlier.
It's really bad. That's not good. They get him back. It wouldn't surprise me if they go into the playoffs and are knocked out in the first round, or if they're in the championship game. Like that's how wild it could be. And you're right. We didn't talk about the defense much because I agree that there really isn't much to talk about. They're very solid. I think they're a championship caliber defense. If the offense can turn this around, and the answers are there, the players are there, they could do it. Like I really do believe they could end up in the championship game or lose 3 of the next 4, not even get a home game. I mean, neither scenario would shock me that much. But they do have the talent to do it. But as you know, the season keeps moving forward without any answers, it's very hard to believe in it. It's at some point you have to do it. At some point you are what you've put, out there as your product. And a lot of the answers, just like for just one tidbit, in shotgun yesterday, they were in shotgun for 51 of their plays. They had 2.2 yards per rush average. Under center, 8.8. Now, granted, that also included that 50-yard takeoff, but that's why that play worked, because they were
Mhm.
under center and it was a fake tush put. Yards per play, 10.2 under center, 4.2 in shotgun. Whoever's call that is, Sirianni, Patullo, Jalen not wanting to be under center, whatever it is, it's got to stop. I mean, the answers are there. And when every analytical person online and every guy who just elementarily breaks down film on Twitter can sit there and show you, all of these issues that are pretty sound reasoning, there's a problem, because I can't even imagine what opposing defensive coordinators go into this thinking. They look at this and must think, oh my God, all we got to do is just set up in this certain way. They're going to do a hitch here. They're going to run. If they have Calcaterra on the field, it's a run 90% of the time. I mean, there're just so many tells. And if they just eliminate all that, just get the hell out of their own damn way, they could make a run. So I expect them to, like Corey said, I expect them to go 3-1. I expect them to beat the Raiders this weekend. I don't think it'll be some blowout, but again, you never know. They're fully capable of it. They could put up 40 points in the blink of an eye. And yes, they do need play action under center. It is coaching malpractice to not be utilizing that more, especially when your offense is predicated on a working run game.
It's very odd that every time something works for them, they don't want to do it anymore, and it's been a theme under this regime, this coaching.
Like it's
regime.
A gimmick instead of their core belief. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Do you think we are done seeing the tush push? I mean, I was
1000%.
shocked that they did not run it when they were on the 2-yard line. They ran it with Barkley. He was stuffed, and then they decided to pass it. Now, yes, it worked until Mailata got called for the holding, but then they had to go, incomplete, and kick a field goal after they were on the 2-yard line. So, and we saw what happened against Chicago on the tush push where Hurts got that ball stripped. The cornerback on the edge wasn't blocked. I'm wondering if that play is just going to be kind of dead and the league won't even have to worry about voting it, because it seems like the players don't really like running it. We know Jason Kelce said he didn't enjoy it, but he knew that it had to be done because it was so successful. I'm just surprised that we didn't see it on that goal line trip where they needed the touchdown.
Yeah, they're just hurt.
It's taking a toll on all their bodies, and it's gone to the point where, and I think Jalen kind of saying I was successful just doing QB sneaks regular.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a punch in the mouth to Sirianni and company, because it's. I mean, this offensive line is just beat up completely.
Jurgens has a neck injury. You think he wants to swan dive to the bottom of a pile? I mean, he has no interest in that whatsoever. And
I mentioned
Dickerson
it a couple weeks ago, but I would love to see more wrinkles out of that formation, like they did.
They do that.
When they ran up to the line and did that toss to Barkley, I'm like, yes, there it is. Make teams unsure of what the hell you're going to do. And then, okay, maybe once in a while sneak in the traditional tush push when you need that 1 or 2 yards to gain to keep a drive moving. But they could do a lot of creative things. I'm not saying you're featuring it every drive, but keep in your back pocket.
It should be one of those things as a strong wrinkle in the game, because you could do so much. Like you mentioned, you could do so much from that formation. And I don't know. Again, what works for them, they always move away from it, and they got to get away from this weird screen game, because it's not even. I feel like it's not even a screen anymore. You're throwing it and praying to God that Devontae Smith could just get a couple yards.
That was probably one of the worst calls of the night for me.
I thought that going nowhere.
I thought the screen was gonna be the last play of the game for them. I thought they were actually gonna call it, but thank God they didn't.
I didn't mind the deep shot to AJ, and we talked about it in the chat earlier today, because that's what they've been trying to do. They've been trying to go for that dagger, and if AJ holds on to that ball with the way the defense was playing, they probably win that game.
Absolutely.
But then at that point, just run the ball and force the Chargers to take that timeout. I mean, you allow them to keep a timeout in their back pocket, and it gave them enough time to get in only field goal range to tie the game. That's all they needed. So instead of going the length of the field, they only needed to go half of it, needed 40, 45 yards less than that. I forget where they got that the kick from. But, yeah, I don't know. When they threw that screen, I knew it was going to be a disaster, and you're running the risk of stopping the clock and giving the Chargers a free timeout, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was a terrible showing. And like the guys expressed, defense, they did their part at the end of the day. Offense has been the Achilles heel of this team all season long. We are out of time. Unfortunately, I feel like this can be a very passionate conversation throughout Philadelphia until leading into the Las Vegas Raiders game, which you can't even measure them by that game because it's the Raiders. But nonetheless, Corey's feeling good about 3-1 finish. Dave's feeling good about 3-1 finish. I wouldn't be surprised 2-2. It just feels like something's got to give at some point. Somebody's got to step up in that organization and realize that the players are who the players are, but the coaching staff is who the coaching staff is, and one can't get better while the other can. Nonetheless, we want to thank you guys for joining us, filling up the chat. We hope you guys tune in next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. to recap the Raiders game, preview the next game. Until then, please stay in your homes. Don't burn down the city. It's not the city's fault that the team sucks.
Hey, the Phillies got Kyle Schwarber.
There you go. Phillies got Kyle Schwarber. The Mets lost Edwin Diaz. It's a beautiful day in Philadelphia.
Yeah, how you feeling about that one there, Mr.
Let's not get started. We're talking about the Eagles. The Eagles suck right now. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Nonetheless, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Naito, David. I was gonna say David Diaz. See through you.
I'll take that.
David
$1 million
Nees.
arm.
We're flipping the birds, and we'll see you guys next week.
Flip.